hello, everyone out there. How's everyone doing on this Thursday? It is time for the Ella Johnson Show. Listen, this is Real Talk TV, where we can be on TV and talk real. Well, I am so excited about tonight's broadcast, and you will be too after you meet my guest. Listen, I want to talk real to you for a second. If you have ever been that person who feels like, you just cannot take anymore, that you're at the end of your rope and, it's just hard because of all the obstacles that you have had to endure, you definitely need to watch this broadcast tonight. Think about this. What if, how in this country, in America, whenever something breaks out, we have these protests and they break out in violence. It's usually us doing it. And they bring in the police, military, if need be. They come in and everything is calm. Well, imagine being in a country where the rebels take over and they're just killing people. And the only way you survive is to just hide. Imagine. Well, I guess tonight had to do just that. And he had to flee his country with nothing but the shirt on his back with his wife. You do not want to miss this broadcast. Now, you guys just saw the video of what he went through and how he got to be the mayor. But tonight, we're going to talk a lot about what led him there. Now, I noticed that he's not there, so we're just going to have to talk a minute because I see that there's some kind of technical. There he is. Well, I want you guys to meet my guest for the night, okay? He is joining me right now. Hello there.
Hello, Ella.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Listen, I want everybody to know who you are. You are a refugee from Liberia's first Civil War, because I think there were two, but he is a refugee from the first Civil War. He escaped from Liberia with his wife. And like I said, nothing but the shirt on his back. His wife, Maddie, by the way. He has dedicated his life to serving others. He's been seen on NBC, MSNBC, Daily Show with Trevor Noah, and TEDx. So I'm feeling pretty special that he's here tonight on the Ella Johnson Show. It's the first Black mayor of Montana. Welcome to the Ella Johnson Show.
Hey, Ella, thanks for having me. I know it's been a long time coming, but I'm happy to be with you tonight.
I am too, because I know you've told this story so many times, and I'm so glad that you have just enough strength to tell it one more time right here on this show, because I think it's such an important topic, because there are people that are watching this broadcast that I know go through things, and we love to have these pity parties, and just say what we can't do. But you, in 2017, was elected the first Black mayor of Montana. Now, I know that it could not have been easy. So let's start all the way back from the beginning. But before we get into your story, let's give everybody a little history lesson about Liberia, because I'm sure a lot of people want to know a little bit more about where you came from, and then we're going to jump into what happened.
You bet. Well, the little history lesson, Liberia was established by slaves that were freed from this country and went back to Africa, and they were used to certain things that they had learned from here. For instance, they took with them the English language. They took with them Christianity. They also took with them form of government. But Liberia being the first independent African nation, we were the first to even form a government. Some of the things they decided to honor the fifth president, the United States fifth president, James Monroe, by naming the capital city in his honor, Monrovia. And I bet a lot of people here don't even know where they get the Firestone tires, the BF Goodrich, the Bridgestone. All those material come from Liberia. Liberia has the world's largest rubber plantation, and it's Firestone Plantation Company. And I'll tell you another tidbit. The marriage between Firestone and Ford happened in Liberia.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Mabel Ford, who was Henry Ford granddaughter, and Harvey Firestone, who was Harvey Firestone's grandson, they met in Liberia and they got married. There's a town named after them called Harbel, Har for Harvey, Bel for Mabel.
Okay.
So yeah, there were lots of similarities going up because growing up in high school, I played baseball and basketball and tennis. In fact, I went to the University of Liberia on a tennis scholarship. And so, we had nothing to leave Liberia for until in 1980, the president, Dr. William Talbot, was murdered. He was also president of the Baptist World Alliance. He was a pastor, he was a reverend.
I noticed that in one of your broadcasts, you talked about, and this I thought was pretty interesting, how the people that came here from America that started Liberia, because they were freed from here, and they named some of the streets just like they were here in America. I think that was incredible when I saw that.
And even places were named after, like I'm from Maryland in Liberia. We have Louisiana there also. We have New Georgia. We have Mississippi
Wow.
River. So yeah, that's the linkage between Liberia and the United States.
Well, I'm glad you gave us some history because a lot of people never really heard of Liberia until Eloise was named, got the Nobel Peace Prize. So I'm glad you gave us a little history of that. Before everything broke down, I mean, when all hell broke loose, before that, what were you doing in Liberia?
Well, you see, my parents worked for the Firestone company I told you about, the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company. My mom was superintendent of schools, and my dad was a civil engineer. He went to Howard University, here in America. They both came to school here. My mom went to San Francisco State University, and my dad went to Howard University. So we lived well.
Okay.
I went to the University of Liberia. I graduated with a bachelor's in political science and sociology. I got an associate in general arts. And I started to teach at an international organization, the SOS Children's Village. It's in every country. It's even here in America.
Okay.
It's an organization for orphans, And so I started to teach. And I was there for the first 3 years after graduating from the University of Liberia. I also attended the Liberian Foreign Service Institute, where I graduated and I was learning Chinese to be sent out as a foreign service officer. And all of that came to a screeching halt.
Yes, and that's where we're going to pick up because all hell broke loose. That's what we call
Yes,
it
it
here.
did.
I'm sure you
Yes,
probably
it did.
learned that term by now.
Yeah.
But all hell broke loose. Tell me the day it started for you.
Well, we heard that the rebels had entered Liberia through the Ivory Coast, and that was December 24th, 1989. But we were so far away, we were basically removed from the initial fighting because we were in the capital city, Monrovia. So we didn't feel it. But the rebels progressed and they started taking up areas and started taking up areas. And pretty soon, before we knew it, they were in Firestone, where my folks were. And so my parents and siblings, we all fled Firestone. They fled. I was already in Monrovia, but they fled Firestone and came over to Monrovia. And at the time, my wife was a medical student, so we were at the medical dormitory. And I remember during the evening hours, the doctors would allow us to go into the hospital and pretend to be doctors just to keep us safe
Oh,
from the
wow.
rebels or the soldiers. And this day, a buddy of mine, Festus Thomas, and I were so tired because we had been looking for food and nothing. And we got into a car right next to the entrance of the hospital. And we fell asleep.
Mm,
And that night was the night that the soldiers raided the hospital.
wow.
They raided the hospital. They took people who they thought were rebels. And Ella, believe me, if they had seen my buddy and I, we would have been dead. But something happened because the windows fogged up where we were sitting in the front seat, and
Oof.
all those guys just ran by the car and didn't even realize the fog meant someone was sleeping in there. And after about 20, 30 minutes, my wife came because she thought they had gotten us. So she came running and she banged on the window. For the first time, we opened up our eyes and said, "What's going on?" She said, "They just raided the hospital. We gotta go. We gotta go." I said, "What do you mean raided the hospital?" When we got out, man, bloody. It was bloody. They took
Oh,
patients and all of that. So we fled that area and then went to my sister's home, not far away. And then the fighting came over there too. For 3 days, we were on our stomach. We were on the floor because bullets were flying through the house. So we had to stay low. And then finally we heard, "Get out, get out." The next day when we got out, the place was littered with bodies. We were jumping over
oh,
bodies.
mm,
Yeah. And then,
wow. Well,
yeah.
for everybody to understand, I want to rebels. They would just. What did they want? Why were they just doing this? What
You see
was
what
the
happened
purpose?
here is remember I told you 1980 the soldiers took over and the president William Talbot was murdered, and so the soldiers took over and we had a military government. And a lot of Liberians fled Liberia during that coup d'etat, and they were outside of the country. And those people wanted to come back in to take out the military leader. So those people that were coming back into Liberia, even though they were Liberians themselves, they were considered the rebels versus the soldiers.
Okay.
So
So it
yeah.
was hard to tell the difference.
It was hard because the rebels didn't wear uniforms. Some of the soldiers didn't wear uniform. And when you were going through those checkpoints and they were questioning you, you didn't know who you were talking to. That's
Oh
how
wow.
I lost two brothers in that war. One was
Oh,
beheaded and one was
oh.
shot.
Did you see it happen?
No, I wasn't
That
fortunate to see it happen, but I was fortunate to see the head.
oh my gosh. So was the only way to be safe from this was to hide and run, or could you bargain with them?
Constantly. I mean, you were on your P's and Q's constantly. And the safest area around Monrovia at the time was the area around the American embassy.
Okay. And
And
that's where you
so
guys went and hid.
that's where my mom, my wife at the time, my fiance, and my siblings, we went out to the American embassy area, but it was just in the open. The American embassy had a fence, and we were just around the fence because the soldiers would not go that close up to the American embassy. So that area was pretty safe. So we were there, and then this lady recognized my mom and said, "I have a room in my house, but there's no bed if you want to come out of the element." And
Right.
that's how we were about 6 or 7 of us in one bedroom with no bed. And
I wouldn't have cared. I'm like, yes,
yeah,
anything. Yeah, just to be safe.
so
Okay.
yeah, and we went there. And then, but other West African countries has seen that Liberia, the beacon of hope in Africa, had turned into a complete chaotic scene. So
Wow.
they got together and decided to send in a peacekeeping force.
Okay.
But even at that, when the peacekeepers were coming, the rebels were fighting them off because when the peacekeeper got in, they'll bring peace and they might lose some ground. And so, but eventually the peacekeepers came in.
So
And
these rebels weren't afraid of anyone.
no, they
Oh,
had the weapons, they had the ammunition, they had the drugs, they had the alcohol. They had everything. Look, I watched they were as young as 9 years old. I still remember going through a checkpoint where this little boy had killed this person because they thought he was a soldier. And right after he got through killing the kid, he went on to start playing marbles.
oh,
So he didn't even have the concept of what life was.
yeah.
So
They were so desensitized, it sounds
oh
like.
my gosh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're hiding, you're safe at this point. What led you? Because I know you guys ended up on a ship. How did that happen at this
So
point?
Yeah, and then we also learned that the West African peacekeepers that came on those ships that brought the soldiers, they came on cargo vessels. They told Liberians, if you wanted to leave, you can leave on any one of the ship that comes into the port. And
Okay.
so on a Thursday, we had heard that there was a ship at the port of Monrovia. And my mom, my sibling, my brother, my wife, my brother-in-law, my sister, that evening we all prayed that yes, it was time to leave because things had gotten so bad. I'll just tell you, I'll give you another example how bad things had gotten. This day, my wife and I decided to go look for food. And while coming back, we went around 9 o'clock that day. And while coming back, we found nothing. At the final checkpoint before we got back home, we got stopped. And this guy, this rebel, is questioning my wife, and you don't say a word. So he's questioning my wife and telling her she was she was dating the president of Liberia. My wife said, "No, I don't know him. I know him. He's the president." And after about 20 minutes of questioning us, he looked at us and said, "You're very lucky today. I'm done killing for the day."
Oh,
And told us to get out of there. And we ran and ran and ran. And when we got there, I promised I would no more. I was getting out of there. If I would die, I would die of starvation. But then the following day, we heard the peacekeeper said that we could leave the country on board the vessel, the ship. And we prayed that night and we agreed to leave. And finally, the day came Friday. My mom says, "No, I'm not going. The Lord isn't leading me to go." I said, "My God, the Lord brought the ship. He is leading me. That's a sign, you know?" And she is telling me, "Nope." So she wouldn't leave.
oh my goodness. So now
Yeah.
did you ever decide, did you have to
Oh,
decide, okay,
yeah.
should we go? Should we not? Because she doesn't
Oh,
want
we
to
were
go?
determined to go. My
Oh,
mom,
okay.
we always knew she was stubborn. So,
Right, right.
so, and then as we told her, "Well, we're leaving," and then she handed my wife $5 and said, "Go,
Oh,
God be with you."
wow.
So we left and went to the port of Monrovia. When we got to the port, the line to get on board the ship was crazy. We were online Friday, we were online Saturday, we were online Sunday, 9:47 p.m. My wife and I got chosen to get on board the ship 10 o'clock to shut the gate.
Well, wait a minute. You haven't eaten.
No.
So
Oh, we
you're
want no, nothing,
there was nothing to eat.
nothing.
Wow.
When we saw people with food, we would beg, and if they were gracious, they would give us some. Other than that,
Wow. How many people loaded that got on
ten
that ship?
thousand, 10,000 Liberians got on that cargo vessel.
Oh, wow.
And when we got on board that cargo vessel, we didn't even know where it was going.
You
So
didn't
finally,
care.
the next morning, I whispered to my wife because there was only standing room, as a matter of fact. That's
Right.
all we did. We stood up for 3 days.
Wow.
So finally, I said, "So where is this vessel going?" She said, "I thought you knew." I said, "I don't know where it's going." But the following morning, we found out the first stop would be in Ghana. And I always promised myself I wanted to go to an English speaking country.
Right.
I didn't want to go through that problem again, learning French and all that kind of stuff. So, but what will happen? And I thank God every day. My mom didn't listen to us because she was elderly. And the next morning, we heard people crying. Their
Wow.
loved ones had died on board the ship that night, and they had to dump them overboard.
Oh. What
Yes.
was were people bothering them or they just died from starvation?
It has, some of them died from starvation,
Oh my
sickness,
gosh.
whatever it was. But I think about it as, my God, how could I, in good conscience, just throw my mother overboard?
Right.
You
So
know,
she really did hear from God.
she
So
did.
now you guys have made it to Ghana. You got off the ship.
So then, no, then we get into Ghana on the third day. That was three days standing up. We got them into Ghana, and I knew I worked for an international organization. I taught at the school. And I knew they had a branch where we were, but I didn't know where. So I told my wife to give me the $5, and I was able to slip out of the port and stop the cab and ask the cab, "Do you know the SOS Children's Village?" And he says, "Yes." I said, "Can you take me there?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Is $5 enough?" He said, "Yes." I later found out it would have cost 50 cents. But
And that was all you had was the
yes,
$5. Oh my
he
goodness.
took it. So when we got to the port, I mean, when we got to the village, I asked to meet the director. My cousin and I, we asked to meet the director. He came and we introduced ourselves saying we were from SOS Liberia, but now we're at SOS Ghana. And he said, "Can you identify yourself?" I said, "Yes, I'm Wilmot Collins." He said, "Any IDs?" And during those days in Liberia, if you travel with ID, it was a death sentence.
Why is
So
that?
because they will link you to something.
Oh my
And in
goodness.
order to avoid being linked to some terrible
Right.
situation, you just got rid of it. So for the first time in my life, I could not really prove I was Wilmot Collins
Oh no.
because I didn't have any ID. But he said there was a ship had come to Ghana earlier, and some of the students had come on that ship. He said, "Let me send for them. If they can identify you, we will help you." And he sent for the boys. When they saw me, they started crying.
Oh
I'm
no.
confused. I thought they were going to be happy. So
Right.
they're crying. And then I asked to use the restroom. I go into the restroom for the first time in 6 months. I looked in the mirror
Ooh.
and I got on a scale. When those boys knew me as their teacher, I was 175 pounds. That day when they saw me, I was 92 pounds.
Oh wow. So you lost a lot
That's
of
why
weight.
they were crying. My wife was 87.
87 pounds?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. You guys were literally starving. What did you ever eventually find anything to eat?
Yeah, when we got to the village, they had sort of like a party.
Oh,
When they
good.
finally knew that we were who we said we were,
Okay.
man, they had a spread. You know, they had things we had not seen for
I was
months
gonna say
and
that. Well,
months.
it's probably hard to choose, huh?
Oh man! But after the very next day, I was hospitalized. I don't know. My system couldn't take that anymore because we had been with us so long. But I had when I got to the hospital. I was there for 7 days. I had malaria. I had dehydration. I had kwashiorkor. I mean, you name it, I had everything. And as I got better, we got back to the village. They put me into the village school to start teaching again. My wife was a medical student. She started helping out in the clinic. And
Now let me
after,
back up just a second because I watched one of your broadcasts and you survived off toothpaste. You
yes,
literally found
another
toothpaste on the
time,
ground.
right, another time, my wife and I went looking for food, and we were coming back empty handed. And then I saw the tube of toothpaste, Pepsodent. I'll never forget that. I don't know if you know Pepsodent
I've heard
toothpaste.
of it, yes.
That was what we found on the ground. And I picked it up and I sucked half of it, give it to my wife. She sucked half of it. That's how we went home that day. That's what we
Jesus.
did for that day.
Jesus. You survived off toothpaste. What a
Yeah,
story. Okay,
yeah.
so now you're teaching. Let's go back to now
And
you're
so
teaching.
they put me back in the school and I'm teaching the kids and my wife's in the clinic. And then 3 months into, I thought what was getting normal. I'm enjoying life all of a sudden now, regularly eating, doing everything right. And then my wife comes up with this crazy idea, says, "Let's go to America." I said, "How do you
Wow.
suppose we do that?" She said, "In fact, let's go to Montana." I said, "Whoa, slow down, make up your mind. We go to America, we go to Montana." She said, "Montana is in America."
You didn't know that Montana was in okay.
Come on,
That's
man. I'm
funny.
from, you know, Liberia, and nobody really knows Montana. I think we put Montana on the map, quite frankly.
We kind of forget about it too, so
Yeah.
don't feel bad.
And so she said, and then then and I knew, but I forgot my wife was an exchange student, and she came to Montana. She lived with a host family. She went to the local high school, and and that's what she was saying. Let's go to Montana. So when she contacted her host family that she lived with, they were more than happy to help us, but they had no clue what to do. We had no clue what to do. But they didn't relent. They did everything. They talked to the congressional leaders. They talked to the local college here, and finally, the local college awarded my wife a full scholarship to do nursing
Oh,
because they didn't
wow.
have a medical school. So they said we have a nursing program. So eventually, my wife came, but 2 weeks before she arrived, she was really sick.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and so we took her to the hospital. They ran tests and tests and tests. And then the doctor comes out and said, "Congratulations, Mr. Collins. You will soon be a proud father." I said, "No, no, 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 no. My wife is going to school." He said, "Well, she's going pregnant." And I'm like freaking out.
Oh, wow.
Now this changes
Now,
every.
did you have mixed feelings at this moment? Because you know what you're going through, and now
Oh,
you have to
yeah.
bring a child into the world.
And coming here alone, coming to America without me and coming
Oh,
pregnant. And so I said, I don't think you should go anymore then, But she was determined. She
wow.
convinced me and said, I think that's the best thing for us. And so she came, she entered school, she graduated with honors, she had the baby. She and another student had alternate schedule. When she was coming from class, the student would meet her at the door and she would hand the baby to the student. And when the student coming from class, she handed the baby back to my wife, Maddie.
Oh,
And
you talk about teamwork. I love it.
that's how they babysat.
Hmm.
And I was away. In the meantime, I was in Liberia. I mean, I was in Ghana. And then we had to go back home because SOS Ghana said that the village in Liberia had opened and they needed us to go back. And so we went back home and they had ceasefire. And then that ceasefire broke. And this time I fled. I fled into the Ivory Coast and they
Oh,
speak
wow.
French.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow.
But you didn't speak French.
No,
Oh, boy.
that was no joke. But while on the run, my wife had not heard from me for almost 6 months, so she really thought I was dead.
Oh, there was
Yeah,
no way to communicate, of
yeah.
course.
And
Now
then,
talk to me about that because that's interesting. Right here, it just doesn't feel like it can get any worse. You don't
no,
have your wife, she's pregnant, she's gone. You're out here, you're in an unfamiliar place. What were you going through mentally at this point?
you know, I was disoriented. I'll tell you that
To
because
say the
first of
least.
all,
Yeah.
you're not getting you're not being fed. You have
Right.
nothing, zero. And one of my buddies took me in and I moved into his home. And his parents, he was my best friend. We went to a Catholic boarding school, and we were not classmates, but roommates. And his parents said, "You can stay here as long as you want until you can join your family."
Oh,
And so I stayed there. His father even hired somebody to teach us French because we were stuck in the house.
right.
Stuck in the house. And the first time I ever got out of the house, I wanted to go take pictures to be able to send to my wife. And so I thought I knew enough French to do that.
Oh,
And so when I got out and I saw this gentleman, I froze and I didn't know what to say. And I'm telling this guy, I'm looking for a photo studio, photo, and I'm doing all kinds of things. And he's looking at me, smiling. And finally he said, "Are you looking for a photo studio?" I said, "You speak English." You didn't ask me. All you were doing was photo and all. So the next thing I learned was vous parlez anglais or vous parlez français. I learned that. Do you speak English or do you speak French? And so I went to the photo studio, took pictures, and sent it over to my wife. And she knew I was alive.
thank God.
And
Yes.
it was tough.
So
Uh,
now your wife is in America.
yep.
She's doing her thing here.
Yep.
And you finally, how long did this process take for
Two
you?
years and 7 months.
2 years.
And 7 months.
What was that all about? What were they investigating? What did you have to go through?
So we I had to go to the United Nations refugee process, and you had to convince everybody every step of the way that you all you were doing was trying to survive and be with your family. And I
Right.
still remember when we started the process, my wife was still pregnant, and I wasn't eligible to join the program because the US Congress had passed what we call the Liberian Refugee Resettlement Act. And what that was, the only way you can come to America, you had to have an immediate relative who was an American citizen, who was a permanent resident, and then they could file for you and you could come. But at the time I tried to join the program. I didn't have I My wife was pregnant and she was a student. So I got on the program after my wife had delivered our daughter. And then I went back and explained down. They wanted me to prove that my daughter was my daughter because when I first went there, I didn't have it and I didn't qualify. But now I
Right.
had a daughter. So my wife had to send the birth certificate. My wife had to prove that we were still in touch. All the letters I ever wrote her, she had to send it to the embassy to prove that, yes, we were still married and all of that.
So you weren't there when your daughter was born, when your
Nope.
baby was
When
born.
I saw my daughter for the first time, she was
Oh,
almost 2 years old. She was
oh,
1 month from 2 years old.
oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's fast forward. You finally get on a plane. You go to JFK. You're in
Yeah.
New York now,
Yeah.
and you're in America. What was your first thought? What was your first reaction when you made
When
it
I
to the
no,
US?
but when there was ice all over the place. Right.
Not used to that, I'm sure.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
But then when I got into the airport, to the hotel, I saw a phone booth, and the phone booth had 35 cents to make a call, and I had 25 cents.
So you came to
So
America with 25 cents to your
25
name.
cents. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I just saw this total stranger and said, "Hey, can you loan me And he said, "How will I be paid back?" And I said, "Okay, I'm sorry. Would you give me a dime?" And then he took a dime. He handed me a dime. Because I said loan, that
Right.
means he expected me to pay him back. And so, but when I said give, he handed it to me, and I called my wife from the hotel and said, "Hey, I'm in America. I'll be coming to Montana tomorrow."
Wow.
And yeah. And my sister met me at JFK. I had a sister who lived in New Jersey. She met me at JFK and she brought this huge bag of clothes, winter jacket and everything, and said, "Before you go to Montana, put every piece on because it's going to be cold."
Oh, yeah.
So I listened
Definitely.
to her. The next morning, for the first time, I saw long johns. And she said, "Put every piece on." I remember. So there were two sets of long johns. And I put on, you know how difficult it is to put on two sets of long johns?
I've never done it, so
Oh,
no, I
well,
can't imagine.
it's very difficult. So I put on those
Yeah.
two sets. I put on a white shirt. I put on a vest, a turtleneck, and this huge winter jacket. I got on the plane from JFK. The first stop was Salt Lake City. When I
Mhm.
look around the plane, I was the only person profusely sweating
Oh my goodness.
because I
I'm
had
sure, yeah.
and so I went into the restroom and took off a few layers. And then we boarded the plane to come to Helena. And this is amazing because the guy next to me. I sat down. I'm by the window, and this guy's the aisle. And as soon as he sat in, he said, "You must be Wilmot." And I was like, "Whoa, who are you?" I mean, I know nobody in America, and I'm on the plane, and this guy says, "You must be Wilmot." So I said, "Who are you?" He said, "Oh, my name is Craig Baker. My parents were the one that awarded your wife the scholarship to do nursing.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And
It
so,
sounds like your steps were all ordered.
oh, I'm
That's
telling you.
from the very beginning. So your relationship with God, how did was that strengthened during this process? Or were there times where you felt like he just forgot about you?
Do you know, I would tell you, my mom, look, when I got on that ship and saw people throwing their mom overboard,
Mm,
and I heard my mom say, "The Lord is not leading me." That says it all.
yeah.
And then that happened. And so Craig introduced himself to me. I said, "Oh, wow." I said, "But tell me, Craig, how did you know I was Wilmot?" He said, "Look around the plane." And I looked around, the only black guy. So,
Going to Montana. Yeah.
with the one
Dead
that,
giveaway. Yeah.
so then I said, "Oh, okay, I understand."
Yeah.
Then we're descending, coming into Helena. I still remember the pilot comes on and said, "Welcome to Helena. It's sunny and warm at 32 degrees." And I'm in school, I learned 32 degrees. That's freezing. That's
Yeah.
freezing. And this guy says it's sunny and warm. And so as we're descending and we're closer and closer and closer, I saw people walking around in shorts.
Oh my god. Yeah. I'm not surprised
In
there.
shorts. And I was just
We don't do
surprised.
that. I can assure you.
No,
So yeah,
no.
we don't do that.
And so when I
Well,
got down, I saw this big banner, "Welcome home, Wilmot."
aw.
And I'm like, wow.
How did that feel? I
Oh
can
man,
only imagine what you were thinking at this moment.
I didn't even believe it. I
I
did
can
not
imagine.
believe it.
I can
And so as
imagine.
I approached the terminal, I could see people all over the place, not realizing all those people that were there were for me. They were there because,
Wow. Wow.
and I got in there.
Were you overcome with emotion when you saw all of that?
When I, when my wife, I saw her in the corner
Oh.
and I saw her holding this baby
Oh.
and I saw her put the baby down and said, "There's daddy." And I heard her
Wow.
say, "Go to daddy." And
Mm.
my daughter started walking, and I didn't want to startle her. So, whoo, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Take your time. It's all right. It's all right.
I didn't want to startle her because she didn't know me and I didn't know her. So I was careful. I started walking slowly.
Wow.
And then she just started running towards me. And I just ran towards her, grabbed her, and I started screaming. I hit the floor.
Wow. Well, your story is touching a lot of people. I am definitely moved. Before we get into what it was like when you got to Montana, I want you to meet someone else. She's going to join the broadcast with us because she too, during that same time, Wilmot, she had to flee from Liberia during that same time, but she didn't come to America. She went to Sierra Leone. She's going to say it so much better than me. I don't have
Seriously.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You guys say it so much better than me, but she went there for 3 years. And I want to bring her into the broadcast because I think it's so important for everybody to see that there are other people that had to go through. Now, her name is Helen Susie Charles. She fled from Liberia during the Civil War, but she fled to Sierra Leone. She's a mother. She's an actress. She's an entrepreneur. She's a social worker, journalist. She has a lot of experience in banking, 11 years actually. She lives in the hills from Liberia, which is Bomi County,
Yeah.
and she's the owner of Monrovia Party City. That's how we met because when I did events over in Liberia, she's the one that I went to get some items there. And she's an actress, and her movie Wheels and Deal came out in December, and she's currently shooting a movie called Strawberry List. Welcome to the Ella Johnson Show, Helen.
Thank you, Ella.
It is so good to see. I love talking to you guys because I love the accent. Now you have more of an accent than Wilmot. He's been in Montana. you know. Some of his is just kind of wearing
Yeah.
off a little bit.
And I live
But
in Liberia.
believe me, it wasn't always like this because
I'm
I still
so
remember a lot of times they used to say, "What did you say? What did you say?"
now
So I
the reason
What did you say?
I wanted you guys to meet because you're from the same place, but you ended up in different places.
yeah.
And I want you to give us a little brief story about what happened with you, Helen, before we jump into Wilmot's um, mayorship.
Well, okay, Ella, thank you so much. And my pleasure to meet you, Mr. Collins. Um, During the civil crisis, I was a kid. I was 9 years old. So my mom literally had to flee with us to Sierra Leone. And what happened is the similar case that Mr. Collins mentioned. We had to get on this boat, on this ship. And the name of the ship was Victory Reefer. It was a ship. This day, mom came home and she's like, "There's a ship that is going to Freetown, and we have to go." And my dad was like, "I ain't going nowhere. I'm not getting
Oh,
out. I'm not going anywhere. So if you have to go, you have to take the kids. I'll stay home. And I don't know how to live in anybody else's home. So I'm going to be right here. Whatever happens, I'm going to be right here." So mom fled with me and my other siblings. My brother is in the US right now. But my other siblings are here. We fled
Well, are you in
to
Liberia right
Freetown.
now?
And yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm in Liberia.
Okay.
Yes, I'm in Liberia. So we fled to Sierra Leone. I was 9 years old, and we left our dad behind. After 3 years, mom got so worried she couldn't hear from her husband. So she's like, "Whatever happens, I'm gonna go back home. And
wow.
I need to make sure that my husband is okay." And my auntie was like, "You're gonna take that risk to go back home with these babies just because you want to check on your husband?" She's like, "Yeah, I gotta go back home." So we came back home. And we came back home. As God could have it, dad was okay. And we met him safe and sound and healthy. And we all blended back again as one happy family until the Second War came back. So that was just it. I had my parents taking me up and down because I was just a
Remember, I
baby.
said I fled to Ivory Coast the second time.
Yeah.
That's what
Yes.
she's referring to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I think it's so good. You guys, you both made it out. We know that there are a lot of people. I think I'm not. I had the number. There were like 1.9 million people that were displaced as
Oh
a
yeah.
result of this, and I'm not sure the number that were dead, but it was a
When
substantial
I
amount.
left, the war was still on. A United Nations estimated 250,000 Liberians died,
Oh,
and the war was still on. So I know it was much more than that afterwards. But
now, Helen, you got out and you have done well. You know, you're an actress and you're just doing all kinds of things, and you're still there in Liberia. So, how are things there now?
Yeah. Well, literally, I'm not into politics, so I try to keep outside the politics. I do my own business. I work, and I'm into the movie industry, as you already know. So
Uh-huh.
I actually don't get involved into politics. Once in a while, I listen to the radio just so I keep updated on what's going on. Because I run my business, I need to know that my business is safe. I need to know how the economy is going. So, and a banker, I need to know what's happening. So I
Right.
just listen once in a while to know to keep myself updated to activities in the country. But I don't do politics full time, and
That's
I
probably
don't get
safer,
involved.
right? That's probably the
yeah,
safest way to go, right? Well,
Yeah,
my
it's safer
it's
for
not like
me.
here.
It's safer.
no, it's
It's
not.
safer for me.
Wow, because we're so openly talking about politics. Like I had a show last night and I talked about the president, and I'll
Yeah,
probably talk about him tonight and tomorrow
I
night's show
saw that.
too.
I saw last
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
I know, I'm so glad we brought that up because you mentioned to me today, and I was so shocked that, we were talking about how the 20 pastors went to the Capitol. I mean, went to the White House to meet with then President Trump, and
Yeah.
you were asked to go. You were
Yeah,
also invited, and
I
you
got
didn't
an
go.
invitation. I didn't go.
Now, why didn't you go? We're not going to try to bring all that
Well,
back up, but
well,
we're in
I
America,
like
so I'm
I like
excited.
to travel. I would give you the politically correct answer. I like to travel with my family, and they only invited me.
Oh, okay. That's a political answer.
Okay.
So I know the other part of it. It's all good. It's all good. Well, listen, I know that Helen wanted to ask you some questions.
Yes.
So, before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about how you became the mayor of Montana. This is a place that is I'm not sure how many thousands of people, but it's mostly white
A white
people.
dominant state or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you became the mayor. How did you do that?
Do you know? I'll just go quickly into in a nutshell. It when I came, I believe it or not, I didn't work. And I knew this place was the right place. Like you said, God was always leading me. I'll tell you how I got my first job, believe this or not. So my host father that we lived where we lived, he was assistant principal at the local high school. And every morning I would go with him to the school and walk around town. And this day I walked to the Capitol building and I ran up the front stairs. And when I entered, to my right was the office of Secretary of State. To my left was the office of the governor. And I said, I'm going to meet the governor. So I beeline to the governor, and then I got stopped. And the lady asked me, do you have an appointment? I said, no, ma'am. She said, would you like to make one? I said, yes, ma'am. And so I'm writing my name down. And this gentleman comes behind me and said, may I help you? I said, no, sir, I'm here to meet the governor. He said, well, I am the governor, Mark Roscoe. What can I do for you? I stopped. I said, well, I just came from Africa 2 weeks ago, and I thought I should come and meet you. He said, what part of Africa? I said, Liberia. And he knew a little bit of the Liberian history. He said, come on in. And I just walked in his office, and he said, Mr. Collins, so what do you do? I pull out my paper resume from my pocket and hand it.
Oh, wow.
And he's looking at it, and then he presses intercom and said, Pat, would you come in? And so this lady comes in, and he hands her my resume and said, what can we do for Mr. Collins? And she looked it over and said, Intermountain Children's Home is looking for counselor. Why don't you apply and use us as your reference?
Oh, wow.
I got an interview the following week. I started working. I got into the country February 17th. I started working March 31st.
Wow.
And
Then
that
that's
was
incredible.
my first job.
Wow.
Wow, that is incredible. So I noticed, I read some, I've been just reading about you all day, and I learned that you wanted to run for mayor in Liberia, but you didn't.
I did. Yeah, that's true. I was a senior. I was doing political science. And I still remember that year I wanted to run for mayor, but my professor ran, Dr. Amos Sawyer. He ran. And I think he I don't know if he won or he lost, but he ran for mayor at the same time. And I was just, I didn't go through with it. But yes, I wanted to
You're a
do
little
that.
intimidated, huh?
You go against your professor. What do you have against, So yes.
Yeah.
But it was also pretty dangerous to do that at the time because I still remember when I did political science, so we were very active in politics. I remember when the president sent the soldiers on campus to beat up the students, and we had to flee campus.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's how dangerous politics was.
Okay, so you're in Montana, and
Yep.
you decide, because you've had several jobs. You had quite a
Mhm.
few jobs before you
Yeah.
became, protection. You work with kids, child
Yeah.
protective services,
Yep.
and you were janitor
Yep.
and substitute teacher. So
Yep.
you had so many jobs, and you had those jobs a lot of times at the same time.
Yes.
So that's inspiring for people that think, they can't do that. But
But
anyway, and so you have all these jobs, and at some point you felt led to become the mayor. What was that like? Tell me that specific moment that you felt like you heard from God that this is
I
what you
was
needed to do.
sitting at home. My son also did political science at the University of Montana. And I don't know what led him, what they talked about, but he came home this day and said, Dad, we need to talk. And I said, yeah, sure. What about? He said, no, I don't want mom to hear. Let's go out. So we went out, and he said, Dad, I think this year is your year. You need to run for office. I said,
Oh,
whoa,
wow.
what
Wow.
office? He said, mayor. I said, look, I'm not qualified to do that. He said,
Ooh,
Dad, you are. He said, I said, what do you? And then he said, Dad, what do you need? I said, I'm not qualified. I don't know the situation. I don't want to get involved. And then he said, Dad, you are qualified. You have
Jesus.
the education. You know everybody. Everybody know you. And so you do it. And so I said, okay, what's the first step? He said, I don't know, but you have friends who know. And he told me to invite some friends over for dinner. And after eating, I told them this is what I wanted to do. And one of the ladies just screamed and said, this is fate. Not realizing that they had been discussing, they wanted to ask me to do this. And then I invited them over to tell them I want to do this. And so I said, so what do I need to do? Is to talk to your wife. And the first time, my wife, the Liberian woman. So as soon as I said, I want to get into politics, she said, keep me out of it.
Oh,
Is that?
Yeah. Yeah. Keep me out of this. I'm not involved. She wants, she doesn't like the limelight. But
wow.
in my household, we vote on everything. So I said, well, let's vote. And my son had already called my daughter, who was in South America with the Navy somewhere there, and she had agreed. So when we voted, it was 3-1. So she had to get on board. And then I got a team together, and they started guiding me how to go about this. I remember when I went to pay my fee to get on the ballot, and went around and started, because I knew I was running against someone who had been in the position for 16 years, and
Yeah.
he's a likable person. And I did it. I'll be honest, I did it praying that, oh my God, it doesn't happen. I'm still happy. At least I did
Right.
it. All
That's
right.
right. Yeah.
But as time went on, when I started knocking on doors and meeting people, I gained that confidence because they saw it in me. I still remember I went to this home, and this lady, and I had a bag with all my flyers in it, and I was knocking on doors, but she was on her porch having coffee, 9 o'clock in the morning. And I stood to the downstairs, the gate, and I said, good morning, ma'am. And I still remember her response, I'm not buying anything.
Uh-oh.
So I said, ma'am, I'm not here to sell anything. My name is Wilmot Collins, and I'm running for mayor. And then she said, come on up. So I went on up, and normally it's 2.5 minutes per door. 3 minutes, you go one from door to door. This lady kept me for 15 plus minutes. And then, but what blew me away, after that, she took me to her neighbors and introduced me to her neighbors.
Wow.
And then when the first reporting period happened, when we had to report our funding, I had outraised the incumbent.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I knew this was serious.
Yeah. Yeah, they're putting their money on it. That
Yeah.
speaks volumes. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
But
Wow.
I attended every event I was invited to. I call myself a progressive. I went to the Republican, Independent, whatever event they invited me, I attended because I knew I was the underdog. I needed to be seen. I needed to be heard.
Now
And
that's all good, but did everyone welcome you with those loving arms, or
you
did you
know,
have some haters during
but
this process?
I'll be honest with you. If I had haters, they didn't show it during this process. I'm not
Okay.
saying my whole life in Montana has been all rosy. I'll be lying. But during my campaign process, even people, when I knocked on the door, people will open up the door and I'll introduce myself. And some of them told me straight, oh no, I can't vote for you. I'll vote for Jim because he's my friend, but I want to hear from you. And then they will welcome me in and I will talk to them about my plans and all of that. So I never had a door slammed in front of me. Never.
In your
No,
face.
never.
Wow. Now, let's fast forward a little bit because you were mayor under the Trump presidency. And there
Yeah.
were times when he mentioned, he referenced, I think it was Ilhan Omar, where he told her, go back to your country. You don't like it here. How did that feel hearing that? To everything you've been through,
Yeah.
you're in politics now. And to hear the president of the United States say something like that, did that
You know,
set you back?
the dog whistle. You know those dog whistle. He's not only talking to her, because on one of those tapes you saw on Trevor Noah, he said they don't belong here. I'll send them back. I'll send them back. Refugees.
Yes.
He'll send them back. And so then he had the opportunity to talk about sending them back. He jumped at it, and he was talking to other Americans. And I am an American.
Right.
I went through that process. And I
But
work for Homeland Security.
there's been so many misconceptions about refugees. So that's why I'm glad that you're here to clear that up, because so many people, because of him, think that refugees are just here to take our country away and just do bad
No,
things, and that's not the
refugees
case.
refugees are the most vetted immigrants in the country. You do not enter this country until they're satisfied with you. Now, if you look at asylum seekers, most asylum seekers come here as visitors, and then find out they can't go back. So they were not even vetted. If you look at students, they were barely vetted. If you look at visitors, they were barely refugees. They don't come until you're satisfied with us. And so
So,
I went through 5 different interviews. I went through interviews with the UN. I went through interview with State Department. I went through interview with Homeland Security. I went through all of those interviews. We did the medical. We did, I mean, you name it. That's why I said, look, the doctor they assign us to knows more about my body than I know about myself.
Oh my goodness.
ah,
Yeah.
Wow. So
Most
now you've made your mayor now,
Mhm.
and I saw your video. It seems like you really have a good relationship with the people, and some
Yes.
people actually said really good things about you. They were like, he's just an incredible guy, and I can obviously tell that. But Helen, I know you have a couple of questions that you would like to ask Wilmot. This would be a good time to do that before we wrap up.
okay, but let me just formally congratulate him. And Mr. Collins, we are so proud of you, so very proud of you. And want to say congratulations. But let's start with the immigration. Uh, I want to know what are some of the biggest accomplishments that you have done since you became elected as mayor of Montana. What specific challenges do you think still need to be addressed with the immigration sector?
You talking about immigration?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this. I am the mayor of the city of the capital of Montana, Helena.
Okay.
And so as much as, even though I worked with, and during my time here in America, I did work with Homeland Security as an immigration service officer. And the immigration system we have here, it works, because I've seen people go through the processes. But one thing we have to realize, and when I say we, I talk about Liberians have to realize, when your country is not stable, it's very difficult for that visitors and that for you to move back and forth freely, because there aren't any incentives for you to go back home when you come here. And most times it's because it's very difficult for you to be able to prove that you will go back home after you come here. Like, I still remember when I won, I have been trying to get my sister over here for 10, 15 years. When I won and became mayor, I wrote a letter and told them I would get her back. I was the same person. I owned the same property. I made the same money, but I couldn't get her. When I became mayor, she was able to come, and she was granted a visa for 1 year, and she came to Montana for the first time. So what I'm saying, but she went back. She's back in Monrovia there now, and so that was a position that was used to make sure that she will return home. So most times the difficulty comes when we cannot prove that we will be able to go back, and we have nothing to go back to. People will have no jobs and they want to come here and say, "Oh, I'm coming here to visit." How can you come here to visit and go back when you can find work here? So that's
Yeah,
a
no.
serious stumbling block.
Wow.
Okay. Okay. Another quick one. I also want to know whether you are currently or working or involved any bilateral activities relating to the support of the U.S. economy to support Liberia.
As the matter of fact, I belong to this organization. We will soon be going online live. Uh, Awareness is called Awareness Liberia. There were several gentlemen who had lived in Liberia before the crisis, and one of them had contacted me and informed me that, hey, look, have you ever read your Declaration of Independence? And I said, no, I haven't. Imagine a political science student had not read. And this guy forwarded me a copy of our Declaration of Independence. He said, look, Liberia had been put aside since the last government. Africa was put aside. And in order for us to now start putting Liberia back on the map, we need to use this Declaration of Independence, because our Declaration of Independence spelled out, it talks about the US in it. It talks about the slaves coming to from America to Africa. That's what we're going to use. We're going to make copies, high resolution copies, and take a copy to every senator and every representative. That's our goal. And that's awareness Liberia. That's how we're going to get Liberia back on the map and explain to these people this is why we're connected.
We hoping.
Yes. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Wow, that's
Okay.
awesome.
One
Yes.
more question before I leave you. Looking at the health sector now in the US with the COVID-19, you have over 400,000 Americans that have died already. Um, Going forward, what are so immediate remedies do you think could be more effective in the fight of COVID-19?
And I'm happy that the president is now going to be maybe mandating masks, because that's the first thing we all hear about it. Look, I'll be honest with you. My daughter in England had it. My wife in El Paso, Texas
Wow.
had it. My son in Seattle had it. I'm still good, I'm one of those that still haven't had it yet, but follow the science. We have to learn to wear a mask when you're out there. You wear a mask that live.
Yeah, the screen is freezing up there just a little.
It's raising.
Yeah.
You froze.
No. Yeah, you were frozen like all of that. And you were saying some really interesting things
Me?
there, Wilmot.
Interesting things. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So where did we leave off?
You
We
know,
can pick up from there.
yeah,
We're having a bad connection.
Yeah, the connection.
yes. Well, I can see, I can hear. Where I left off
Okay.
was the county I live in. We had Newsweek magazine interview people from this county to find out what we were doing right. It
Wow.
says a lot. We are following the signs, and I encourage people to follow the signs. That's the only way we'll get this thing under control. Listen to the professionals. So,
Okay.
Nice.
yeah.
Well, wonderful. I'm glad that you were able to come on, Helen, and be able to ask Wilmot some questions,
Thank
being
you.
that you
I'm
guys are from the
honored.
same place. I think we're going to
I'm
definitely have
honored.
to.
Now I can go and sit freely because I got a movie to shoot, right?
We're definitely going to have to come and do this again because we've had a
Please.
lot of technical yeah, we'll definitely have to do a part 2 so that we can do this again. But Wilma, I am just so excited about your story. I'm excited about your story too, Helen. I feel like I'm talking to 2 celebrities. Well, I am
Oh,
talking to
no.
2 celebrities actually. I know you're just so humble, and I love your humility. I think it's incredible. But the you have done, and it's the reason I enjoy this story, and it was so compelling to me, is because you never quit. You didn't quit. You could have just said, this is too hard. Why is this happening to me? You could have been angry with God. You could have just said, this is, why did you could have done so many other things, but you chose to trust God and follow the steps that
Yeah.
were laid out for you.
Yeah.
And I might add, you had a strong wife
Yes,
right
indeed.
by
He
your
kept me going.
side.
He kept me going.
Yes, God. Because they always say behind every successful man is a very, very strong
She
woman. And
kept me going.
yes, she really and I noticed that you give her a lot of credit, and she just seems so humble and sweet, but she supports her man, and I love that. And I can't wait to see your movie, Helen, the one that you're working on, Strawberry List. Tell us a little bit about where we can see your movies.
Yeah. Currently, my producers are working to have it on Netflix. So that would
Netflix.
be a good thing. If it's verified to be on Netflix, then you can be able to watch it. But right now, the one we just did, the Wheels and Deals, is cinema. For
It's
now,
in
it's
the
not out
cinema.
yet. It's on the in cinema. It's on the show in cinema. Yeah.
Wow, that is incredible. Well, I have Netflix, so I'm definitely going to look out for
Look
you.
it up when it comes
Yeah,
out.
definitely. And you're more than welcome to come back to
Yeah,
the Ella
sure. I'll
Johnson
keep you
show.
posted.
Definitely keep me posted. And Wilma, we're going to bring you back
Definitely.
because I want to talk
I will.
about the second part of your project, because I know you're getting ready to go back to Liberia.
Yeah.
And you have some things you're working on, and we're going to definitely talk about that in the Wilmot J Collins story part 2, the Ella Johnson show. Well,
Anytime.
guys,
Anytime.
we're going to definitely get out of here because it's just been a great conversation. It always is when you're talking to people that look like us, who have a story, because people need to know that we're more than just what you think you see. There's a
Yeah.
lot behind it, because people will get a little confused sometimes when they see you making it, and they assume it was probably
And don't
easy.
understand
Oh,
how.
no.
Sure.
No. We need you to know what I had to go through to get to this point. So I'm glad that you guys were able to come on this show and do that. So you guys are out there, you're watching this show. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show. Next week on the show, I'm going to probably go more than 2 days because we're going to do some more domestic violence shows. And we just have a lot of stuff to bring to you because there are people out there that are really going through, my series, You Just Don't Know. Well, it's all good. And we're going to talk about some of those things next week. But I want you guys to have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for tuning into the Ella Johnson Show. And we'll see you again right here next week. Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Ella. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, Ella. Thank you.
Good night, dear.
Collins.
Good night.